Hello. Sorry, Butterfingers. As always, we are back. They are not back, but that is okay. We are back with the Timothy Ferrier trial, so they should be back from lunch fairly shortly because this judge seems to be on his timetables and wants to get this thing ready to go and done. He seems to be kind of a no nonsense judge. I do like that. So that is really good. We've gotten through at least two witnesses. Now, though both were police officers who were involved in the initial search for the runaway teen, who I guess they are going to just use his name, which, okay. So, Rowan, the teen, ran away from home allegedly. And again, from all accounts, it seems like he was doing spicy behavior problems, but from what I've heard from the defense, nothing that rises to sort of inpatient stuff from, again, what has been presented from the defense up to this point. I mean, he does sound like he does have some maybe fairly pronounced impulse control problems and, wanting to be loud and obnoxious and rude and, get negative attention. He definitely sounds like he's the child wanted negative attention and, there had to be things in place. I don't know who came up with the idea. Good afternoon, reindeer. I hope everyone got a chance to get some lunch or got some stuff done. I learned that the closer pet store does not have a trainer, but the one in the San Francisco of Indiana does have a trainer, so we will probably be taking a trip down there tomorrow and getting Mr. Friberto.
Coach presiding.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. You may be seated.
Are we gonna Okay, I was like,
All right, we're back in session on State versus Ferriter. All sides ready to proceed?
I think this was kind of help me turn that, like, how to turn it back on, maybe, so we can,
The TV?
yeah, is it?
Pushing the power button, I presume.
this judge is
While he's looking at that, we do need, in order to preserve the record with respect to the video that was requested by the defense in the opening statement, I'd like you to take that video, put it on a thumb drive, have it marked as Defendant's Exhibit 1 for ID purposes, so that it can be properly made a part of the record, because we didn't do that at the opening, but let's make sure that's taken care of.
We also have some objections to the defense. I'm going to show them the video we're going to play through this witness, but the defense has indicated that there's a video that they intend to cross-examine him on, and I would take an objection to it.
Okay, so we didn't address it in by way of a motion in limine, so I'm going to address it in real time as it comes up at the appropriate time in the cross-examination at this point.
They just let us know about it.
Okay, now I understand. So I'll handle that the same as I would any other evidentiary objection. All right, Mark, have we figured that out?
all I'm thinking is those shoes look just so uncomfortable. Howdy, Dirk. Howdy.
Evidence of the actions of Tracy Ferriter changing the room. So this witness that's about to testify, we have an objection separately that wasn't addressed before because we weren't aware of it, to the videos that they want to use during cross-examination of this witness.
Okay.
In the motion in limine, though, we did address two of the videos that the state would like to enter here. So this witness is going to testify that he entered the Ferriter's home prior to the child and took a look at the room. And that's when the room was first discovered. This is the lead detective, Detective Sharp. When we did the search warrant of the Ring camera, it was revealed that immediately before Detective Sharp is led into the room and sees the room, that Tracy Ferriter goes into the room, takes out some of the sheets, and then also takes out the bucket.
And this is the state's video.
These are the state's videos. They're from the Ring camera, but yes, they're the state's videos.
Okay.
And so we think that this is necessary evidence in order to show why when here, when he views the room, it's different. So he's not aware of the bucket or any of that because of her actions. There's no statements. And then subsequent to that, there's a search warrant about 8 days later, and the room is substantially different at this time.
Hello,
The
Carla.
defense alleged that they don't want it to be attributed to Tim, that these actions happen. We're not eliciting any statements. It's actions that are caught on video. Beyond that, they're charged as co-defendants and they're principals to each other's actions. So if this was a bank robbery and Tracy Ferriter, during her escape, took actions that we had video of, those would be admissible in the state proving our case, because they're charged because of the principal theory. They're charged as principals to each other as co-defendants, and they're responsible for each other's actions that are in furtherance of the crime. Right. And so there's 3 videos total that we're going to play. The first 2 are.
Let me stop you there. This is the argument that I heard in limine, and this is one that I said I'd reserve until time of trial. You have any additional argument other than what was made in limine at this point?
Not any additional argument to that. One video doesn't involve.
Yes.
So there's 3 videos total.
Actually, no, these are puppets. I've made this all in Microsoft Paint.
Tracy taking the
Aren't you
actions
proud?
to change the room before law enforcement gets in. We're also going to show.
And you're not playing the audio.
There's no audio to those 2. There's a third video where Detective Sharp goes in and she kind of shows him the room, and he looks around, and you can see him like noticing as part of his investigation some of the aspects. She does say some things during that. We are going to play that one without audio.
Okay. All right. So let me hear Mr. Wahid. You're standing there, so I assume you're going to make the argument on this issue. Okay.
So while I wasn't at the motion in limine, I'm looking at it. So the issue, first of all, the state's argument that it's an act in furtherance, it's actually not. So under co-conspirator law, when the crime is done, anything subsequent to the crime, which is, cleaning up or hiding the crime or all of that, is not considered part of a crime. Therefore, it's not in furtherance, according to federal case law at the very least. And I'm not quite sure.
You have any state case law that supports that position?
I haven't looked at that, so I can look that up, but this is something I do know.
Well, now's the time. If you have it, I need it now because I'm going to be making a ruling imminently.
All right. Well, I'll need a moment then, Judge.
Well, you're not going to get it. You got to make it now, and I'm going to make a ruling because we are in the middle of trial and they need to proceed. I understand, but everybody's been aware of this issue and should come well prepared to argue any evidentiary or legal points with any citation to case law that exists. If you don't have it for me now, day late and a dollar short. I need to make a ruling. So go ahead, Mr. Wahid. And you certainly can rely on your federal case law that you've got. I mean, I'm not saying I'll discount that altogether, but I certainly like to hear state case law when it comes to state evidentiary issues.
Of course, understood. And then the other argument, Judge, here is that there is zero evidence that Mr. Ferriter had any idea about any of this that was going on, in that while it's not in evidence, at some point it might be in evidence, is that he wasn't even in the country at the time. And the court severed this case for a reason, is that you don't want the jury to take admissions of possible consciousness of guilt of one party and impute them on the other. I think that really muddies up the water here, and quite frankly, I think it counters why the court agreed to sever in the first place. So I don't know that this is in terms of admissibility. Those are my arguments. Obviously, I also think there's a 403 argument, which is this is substantially more prejudicial than it is of any sort of probative nature of Mr. Ferriter's
This judge is
culpability.
a straight shooter. I like it.
Brief rebuttal, Ms. Coakley, and focus on your argument again with the principal point that you're making.
Right. They're charged as principals to each other. So their culpability is intertwined as principals. So the actions that were taken in furtherance of the criminal act of one can be attributable to the other.
And you have 3 videos, 2 of them of which have no audio, and a third one you're playing without audio.
Yes, the first 2 are just her removing things from the room. She removes some blankets, and then she removes the bucket. And then immediately after that, chronologically, is when the detective is shown the room. That's when they have that one. I don't believe that they're objecting to. And he looks around.
No, it really doesn't.
Talking. We're not going to play the audio for that one. The first 2 don't have audio.
All right. The defense objection to the playing of the 3 requested state videos is overruled. So they will be permitted to be played during the testimony of this witness. Now, is there another video that I need to address that the defense
The
is gonna be
defense has
playing?
let us know that they're going to try and bring in some body cam. Depending on what they bring in, I'll let Ms. Black make a contemporaneous objection. We may not. We can.
Body cam of the,
It's not of this witness. It's a body cam from the search warrant.
but
And
of the structure?
of the house, yeah. And so I think it might include. So I don't know what they're intending to try and offer. Depending on that, we can make an objection at that time. The second one they have indicated to me is that when the child was found at Independence Middle School, he was initially placed in handcuffs and taken into police custody, like they caught him. They want to put in body cam of the child in handcuffs. The state would object to that. It's not relevant.
Really?
It's prejudicial, and it can cause a confusion of the issues.
Okay, so.
They have indicated that the reason for that is they want to show how he looked at that time. Immediately after he was caught, he was taken to the Jupiter Police Department. There was a recorded interview where he's on video, and there's also photographs of how he appeared at that time taken for that purpose. There's no reason that they have to show him in handcuffs other than to insinuate that there's some kind of criminal conduct there, which Your Honor has already ruled was not admissible.
Okay, Mr. Whitehead, are you going to be attempting to put this in through this witness? Or is it for some subsequent?
Got the other issue still, Judge. So yes, I will answer your question. Then I'll come back to this. I'm sorry, Judge. Say that again.
Are you going to be using the video that she is referring to in cross-examination of this witness?
Yes.
All right, so let me hear your argument and then I'll make a ruling.
Sure. So the body worn camera of the search warrant, Detective Sharp was present. He's in the video. It does show the layout of the house. It also shows the condition of the house at the time of essentially when this offense
Hello,
happens,
Kim.
which is, I think the search warrant's executed.
I let the judge know we make a contemporaneous objection.
Oh.
We're talking about the one of Ronan being arrested.
Okay. So for the other one, there's allegations that the state is making throughout, that they will be making throughout, that Ronan was malnourished, that he was essentially deprived food. And you see him on this video. This is only a couple of days after he's run away from the Ferriters' home. This is the first time you see him.
All right, so focus on the real issue here. It's not that's not the real issue. The real issue that she's raising is whether it's appropriate to show the jurors the minor being handcuffed by Jupiter Police Department and whether that's unduly prejudicial or
Is this defense
probative.
team new?
Well,
I mean, this defense seems a
first
bit
of all,
slimy.
The condition of the child is what you're going to see there first. And this is the first time we will encounter the child on video after he runs away. And secondly, it wasn't like there's no allegation in this.
Defense. Come on here. You just want to show this child in handcuffs to say him a very, very bad boy. These poor parents, they didn't know what to do. He's a criminal. He's terrible. Look, they had to put him in the box. Tell me I'm wrong. Look, I don't make me side with the state. It's against my soul. I don't like to do it. Don't make me side with the state, but you're making it impossible to side with you. You're trying to be shady and slimy. Let's be honest. You want to show this boy in handcuffs so that, it looks like he is El Crimino Uno, like freaking, some sort of criminal mastermind, like the brain with Pinky in the Brain. Now stop.
Case that they were arresting him for some crime. They secured him. I don't know why they did what they did, but they secured him and they put him in a car. But that's the first time. That's part of the story of when they.
Hello,
him. That's where they
HT.
get him.
Well, let me just kind of analogize. I don't allow my defendants to come in front of a jury and be handcuffed because of the negative perception that jurors have when they see somebody coming in to the courtroom.
Yeah, the defense could easily just ask that they include the pictures that they took at the Jupiter Police Department showing his condition. They want this police video of him being arrested because, again, they're going with this wild, crazy kid thing. Again, the man should have just taken the plea deal. I feel like I am talking to a wall. Why did this man not take a plea deal?
Being handcuffed. And I have a similar concern that if they see a witness being handcuffed, that might have an adverse effect on their determining the credibility or not of that witness. So that's where I'm coming from. So address that concern and why I shouldn't be concerned about that aspect of it. Because obviously, the defendants, we protect them to make sure that they're not handcuffed in front of the jurors precisely to avoid the negative implications of what being handcuffed means.
Understood. Although there have been several videos of interviews of my clients that have come into evidence where they are cuffed to a table. But putting that aside for the moment, in this situation, I don't think there's anything.
I don't think in my courtroom, but at least hopefully not, because I know we typically try to avoid that at all costs. But go ahead.
I don't think there's anything here that is prejudicial to the state at all. I don't think it's not that there is no allegation that we're making that in that moment he was being arrested for some crime.
Well,
You're
let me ask you
making
this.
an
Does the
implied
entirety of the video show the minor in cuffs, or is there only a part of it that shows it?
There's a part of it. He walks. I don't know how many seconds or minutes or what it goes. I don't have the timestamp at hand, but he walks down the hall. He walks in. You see him. Then the police officer stops him and then says something to him, and then they put the cuffs on him.
Okay, all right, brief rebuttal, and then I'm going to rule.
It's prejudicial on its face. I wouldn't be able to show the defendants being arrested in this case. There's video of that. They can achieve the same ends. There's video of him literally 15 minutes later at the Jupiter Police Department where he's not handcuffed. And then there's pictures that were taken to document his body. In addition, there's been no allegation nor will be that he was malnourished. The defendants were incredibly controlling and limiting about his access to food. That's fundamentally different than an accusation of malnourishment, which is not the case here.
Okay, so my ruling is as follows. The state's objection is sustained in part, overruled in part. It is sustained as to any portions of the video showing the minor in handcuffs. It is overruled as to the remaining part of the video that does not depict the minor to be in handcuffs. So as far as your side, Mr. Waheed, that means you can play the video. You just got to excise out any part showing that the minor is in handcuffs.
I didn't even see that.
Okay, I don't know. That's what
Yeah.
you haven't shown. I haven't seen it.
The video I was trying to show you earlier, it's just him walking down the hallway and he's in the lobby of the school, and then he talks to some officer, I assume a school resource person, and then they put the cuffs on.
This woman is
And
really
it might keep
annoyed at
going.
this
Well, what you're
defense attorney.
describing, I have no problem with except for the cuffs part that I've already ruled on. But if there is a video of them running the minor down and chasing him and apprehending him, I'm not going to allow that to be played. Okay. All right. So
For the record, can I just put a case on the record?
you can put it on the record. I'm not going to change my ruling at this point, but go ahead.
Well, Wells First State, it's a first district case. We were doing this in a hurry. And it points out that, and in that particular case, it was a homicide case, and that the real issue there was that the questioning, which was after the crime, is not in furtherance of the conspiracy. The crime had already taken place. He's being charged here with aggravated child abuse, that there was no ongoing version of that by the time Detective Sharp has this interaction with Tracy Ferriter. It's therefore not in furtherance of any conspiracy.
Do you have any case law that says that in a co-defendant situation where they're charged as principals to each other, that consciousness of guilt conduct is not something that can be imputed to one of the other principals? Because to me, that's where this becomes potentially relevant, and why I'm ruling the way I am is because if the spouse is showing consciousness of guilt by removing the bucket from the room, and consciousness of guilt can be shown as, that can be the evidence that the state submits. Where you have a principal situation, why would that not be relevant, even under the case you just cited?
Well, the issue goes towards a principal to the crime, and the crime charged here is the actual child abuse charge. That if it would be different if you were.
Well, child abuse, let's not forget false imprisonment and child neglect. And so even on the issue of false imprisonment, it seems to me you've got a much tougher lift to convince me that the consciousness of guilt of one principal isn't imputed or can be used against the other principal. Am I missing something?
Well, I think what the video, as my recollection goes, again, I came into the case late, so if someone correct me if I'm wrong on this, but my recollection is that it's it is essentially removing some sheets and the bucket. It's not removing the lock from the door, which would be the issue of the false imprisonment. A bucket in a room is not part of the false imprisonment charge. The confinement is the false imprisonment.
Not sure I agree with that, but I understand the point you're making. I'm just not sure I agree with it. I mean, the bucket it could be used by the state as potential evidence of the false imprisonment because it kept him from leaving the room and he had to relieve himself in the bucket. So I can see where they can easily tie that in. Any other argument you wish to make, Mr. Wade, for the record?
Not unless Ms. Murad comes up with a case very quickly. No.
Okay. All right. So my ruling remains the same. Thank you for making the argument, and you put your case on the record, Mr. Wade. Thank you. All right. All sides ready to proceed now with the continuation of the state's case.
Yes, we're all set. We did meet during lunch about the next witness, but we are obviously going to need to take a break.
Yeah, we'll take a break. Well, you'll let me know when you're ready for me to take a recess so that we can get the IT set up for the in-camera testimony. And that's the next witness, right? Not this witness, but the next witness. Okay, all right. So Ms. Coakley, you ready to proceed? Ms. Murad? Okay, all right. Mark, you may go ahead and bring the jurors out.
No, try. Or get out of my chair. I didn't marinate ribs. What are you doing?
All rise. All right, everyone may be seated. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, welcome back. I trust everyone had a good lunch and were able to relax during the hour and a half lunch break. In any event, we're ready to start back up for this afternoon. We're still in, as you know, the state's portion of the case where they're calling witnesses. So with that, Ms. Black, is the state prepared to call its next witness? Okay.
Okay. You need to make your own little table over here so you can sit right next to me on your own little couch. Let me see if I can get a view of this, or I need a bigger lap. Either way, because you are not the pocket puppy I was promised there, my Mutsky. You are a bit bigger than lap sized, and I think you might get bigger. Is that the wife? Is she allowed to be in the room when he's being... Aren't co-defendants not supposed to be in the... I don't... As a non-lawyer, I don't know. All right, I'm going to put you on your bed. This is your bed.
Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Mark, can you make sure that's off when it's not in use? All right, Ms. Black, you may proceed.
Good afternoon, Detective. Please state your name, spell your last name for the record.
Yes, my name's Andrew Sharp, S-H-A-R-P.
If you want to hop on, you
work for
can.
the
I didn't
Jupiter
know
Police
if you were doing...
How long have you been there?
I've been at the Jupiter Police Department approximately 17 years.
And what's your title there?
I'm a detective.
How long have you been a detective?
6 years.
What'd you do before that?
Before I was a detective, I had various roles throughout the agency.
He
I was a
he
field
worked at
training officer.
Kinko's.
I also worked on a special response team. I had various other roles.
Now, what kind of training and experience do you have as a detective?
As a detective, I have several hours in advanced interviews and interrogations. I also have several hours of training in regards to child abuse investigations, as well as just general investigations.
So at the Jupiter Police Department, do you guys have any specific units, or are you just an overall detective?
We have an overall criminal investigations division.
And as part of that, do you also do any continuing education every year?
Yes, we do.
Now, I'm going to turn your attention to January 30th of 2022. Were you working that day?
Hello,
Yes, I was.
Okay, and
Nicholas.
in what capacity were you working?
Yes. So I was the
Should have
on-call
sent you a
detective for the
link.
Jupiter Police
I
Department.
think
So I technically
very
wasn't
possible.
at work, but I was on call for the day.
On that day, did you get assigned a case?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and what was that?
That day, I was assigned by our Criminal Investigations Division Sergeant a missing persons case.
How do you typically get assigned a case?
So typically, what happens when you're on call for the day, anything that comes in that would involve further investigation, it's assigned to a detective. And if you're the detective that's on call, it's your job to handle those investigations.
Once you got that phone call, where did you respond to?
The first thing I did was I responded to the Jupiter Police Department and I made contact with the Criminal Investigations Division Sergeant.
And at that time, are you notified about what's been done so far in the investigation?
Yes, I was made apprised of exactly what took place. That a few nights prior, there was a juvenile that was reported missing, and then there was some other circumstances that led the sergeant to assign it to a detective.
Now, what time did you arrive to the police department?
It was that evening, I would say, without referring directly to my report, probably around 6 or 7 p.m.
And after going to the police department, where is your next stop?
The next stop was at the Ferriter residence.
Did you make contact with anyone from the household prior to going to the residence?
Yes, the Criminal Investigations Division Sergeant and I made a call to the mother in the case, Mrs. Ferriter, just to make sure that she was present at the house before we went.
Now, when you get to the house, what do you do first?
The first thing we did was we attempted to make contact with anyone at the residence. We knocked on the door and we were greeted
Great
by
movie.
Mrs. Ferriter.
Where did you end up speaking to her?
The entire conversation took place outside of the residence, kind of in the front porch area. Right, this is like a brick paver walkway. It was right on that area.
Did you notice anything about how she was acting when you first made contact with her?
Yes. So immediately I wanted to go inside the residence to make sure.
Overruled as to that question and response.
Okay, so this case starts out in Florida. The family had recently moved. They hired a contractor to build an 8x8 room in the garage with a lock only on the outside. And it was just a bare bones room, nothing in, no windows, and the ability to put an air conditioning unit in there and then a Ring doorbell. In their telling of the story, they adopted a 14-month-old child from Vietnam. This is the second child that they adopt. It's a large Catholic family. And they they claim that he has very significant behavioral problems to the point that they were scared of his nighttime wanderings and would lock him in his room at night, and other times when they could not observe him, but that they were crying out for help, that they could not get help for his behavior. His behavior sounds like he was the leader of, sadly, 4chan. I mean, he sounds like the behavior listed in the opening statement sounds like Sal's best friend, which Sal and I have already decided that, Sal's going to interview uh, said child when he's an adult. But, so this child was basically locked in this room without the ability to use the restroom. They put a bucket in there, so he would use the restroom in there in the bucket, and he ran away, and the cops tried to find him, found him at school, but then they discovered that they were using this prison room basically to house this child, and they are accusing this family of false imprisonment and child abuse and neglect. Now, they were doing nope. hey, rural people problems, I understand. I do have a hard stop at 2:20 because I am now the bus driver of my youngest children. So I will be stopping this trial then, but I will probably pick it up uh, probably either later on tonight after nightly newsy news. So he was going to school, but they, yeah, I don't know. So basically, he had a plea deal that would be 2 years in prison and 5 years of probation. If he's convicted on all charges, then he's facing up to 50 years in prison. The case was linked with his wife, but now they have severed the cases. I don't know. I'm trying. The defense has a kind of is very aggressive, which is good because you want a vigorous defense, but they are just striking a very off note to me. Uh, it just the tone of it seems all wrong. The judge seems very knowledgeable, very good, very willing to listen to both sides, but the defense just is not. Um, I think striking the right tone, but they don't have a great fact pattern to begin with.
You may continue with your answer, sir. You just can't say what someone said,
Sure.
what you did.
Thank you, Your Honor. So immediately I wanted to go inside the residence because I wanted to make sure, find any evidence of where this individual may be and to make sure that his safety and well-being was taken care of. So I attempted to do so. However, Mrs. Ferriter was
Not too
apprehensive
much.
Overruled,
and would not initially allow us inside.
overruled.
You can finish answering the question.
Thank you. We stood outside probably, I think the entirety of my body camera worn footage was about 52 minutes. And I believe 45 minutes was standing outside of the residence, waiting and asking repeatedly to go inside.
Okay. So you said that she was apprehensive about you going inside, right?
That's correct.
And
And
rest of
I
the
believe
time you
that's the
spent
wife
45 minutes
behind
speaking to her
him,
outside.
That's correct.
and I
Did you
believe
do
that's her
anything to make
lawyer.
her feel more comfortable at that time?
Yeah, he had a
Absolutely.
bucket,
I
a box spring,
reassured
no
her
light.
over and over that I was not there to investigate her. I was not there for any other reason but the safety and well-being of her son. I said I did not care if there was any kind of other illegal activity going on in the house. I wasn't worried about that. My sole priority was for the missing juvenile.
When you first responded to that house, were you alone?
I was not. I was in the presence of the Criminal Investigation Division Sergeant and Officer Jurek.
Did you eventually go inside the house?
Yes, I did.
Were you the only one that went inside the house?
Yes, I was.
So when you first walk into the house, kind of describe what did you see?
Sure, absolutely. When I first entered the residence, there was a small credenza right alongside the wall there. This credenza, there was an object on it, but that was the only item. Mrs. Ferriter then directed me into a room directly inside the residence. I believe it was to the right. She purported that both of her sons stayed in that room.
Sustained is that the statement. I just refrain from saying what Mrs. Ferriter actually said. You can say what she did, what you observed, but not what she said.
Okay,
So
thank you, Your Honor.
you indicated that there was a room that you were shown by Miss Ferriter.
That's correct.
Okay. What did you see in that room?
Inside that room, I only saw objects belonging to a young child. I believe there was a sign that said Pierce in the room. There was also a crib and other objects, leading me to believe that that was the only child that occupied that room.
And you indicated that there was a sign of the name Pierce. Is there a child that the Ferriters have named Pierce?
That there is.
Did you notice anything else about that room?
Inside that room, there was also a small makeshift area that appeared as though there was a blanket and what appeared to be a pillow laying on the floor, but it was there kind of haphazardly. It didn't appear as anyone had slept there. It was just there placed.
Where is the next part of the house that you go to?
After looking in that room, I was directed towards near the Florida room. There was an area with a small
Florida
desk.
room?
Mrs. Ferriter led me to believe that the children would do homework in this area.
Overruled.
You can answer the question.
So there was a
Yeah,
small area
Mr.
for
Moe would have
homework, it
built a better
appeared.
room.
There were some writings that were told to me that belonged to Ronan.
Sustained us to that.
Without going into what was said, what was on the writing,
No.
or anything like that, what was the next place in the house that you went to?
The next place I went to was the enclosure in question,
Where was that enclosure found?
inside the garage of the residence.
And when you first went in there, what did you do?
When I first walked, so the enclosure is through the kitchen and into the garage. When I first walked through the kitchen and into the garage, I noticed that the door appeared to have a deadbolt, and there appeared to be a light switch on the exterior of the room outside to the left of that door. I then walked in and I observed a box spring and a mattress with what appeared to be some sheets. And there was also a small desk, a little bit smaller than this, that appeared to have some children's books on them. So I stood inside the room and I looked around for clues as to, Ronan, where he may have gone, etc.
So I know while you were sitting down, you were motioning kind of like the length of what the witness stand was.
Yes,
Now,
Oh.
how long were you in that room for?
I was in the room less than a minute. I was inside the residence 5 minutes.
Now, after you finished viewing the room, where did you go next?
After I first walked into the room, I recalled that I could see something out of the corner of my eye, but I wasn't sure exactly what it was. So when I walked back out of the room, I asked Mrs. Ferriter if I could go back in the room. She allowed me to go back in. And when I went back in, that was when I saw the Ring camera that was in the corner of the room.
Now, after you saw that Ring camera, what was your next step in the investigation?
The next step, we were directed outside of the residence. I spoke to Mrs. Ferriter for several minutes outside of the residence, and then I directed other units that were working that evening to check in the area of some of the previous places that Mrs. Ferriter advised her son may have gone. So I know I checked the skate park. I directed other officers to check other parks and other areas that were within the surrounding area of where the residence was.
Now, I'm going to turn your attention to January 31st of 2022. Were you working that day?
That day I was.
Okay, and again, what was your role that day?
That day I was a detective, and my role was to continue the investigation in regards to the missing juvenile.
Did you become aware that the missing juvenile had been found?
That morning, I was made aware that the juvenile was located at the Independence Middle School.
And where did you respond to?
I responded to Independence Middle School.
Subsequent to that, did you meet with the juvenile?
I did.
And where did you meet with him?
So the juvenile, I met with him initially on scene, and then he was brought back to the Jupiter Police Department so I can conduct my initial fact-finding interview with him.
Okay, and you said fact-finding. What is that?
Just an initial interview, just to find out exactly what I'm dealing with, exactly what the facts of the case may be, and find out exactly if there are any allegations of criminal behavior, etc.
How was he acting when you met with him at the police department?
He was very soft-spoken, very timid and shy, and appeared to be withdrawn and was very nervous.
Did you eventually get a statement from him that day?
I did.
Now, turning your attention to February 1st of 2022, again, were you working that day?
I was.
And did you make contact with the siblings in the case?
I did.
Okay, and who are they?
Both, I made contact with both daughters, Nola and Fiona Ferriter. I apologize for misstating her name.
And did you take them anywhere?
Yes, they were brought to the Child Protection Team office in West Palm Beach.
And what is the Child Protection Team office?
The Child Protection Team is an office that's holds forensic interviewers, and they do our forensic interviews for our cases. So a more detailed interview than my initial fact-finding interview that took place.
So both Nola and Fiona were interviewed there.
That's correct.
And subsequent to that, on February 4th of 2022, was Ronan interviewed there as well.
Yes, he was.
Now, after all of these interviews were done, what did you do as part of your investigation?
As part of my investigation, I served a search warrant, and I served and executed a search warrant on Ring, which was the camera that was inside of the room. And I began perusing the surveillance videos that were obtained through that.
So I know you kind of are describing the camera, but what is specifically Ring?
Sure. So ring.com, I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but Ring is a service that provides video doorbells. They also provide surveillance equipment and other things. And they are a cloud-based storage server. So anytime a video or anything is recorded through their service, it's uploaded and stored on their cloud server.
So you went ahead and executed that warrant for Ring.
That's correct.
And what did you get back from Ring?
Dave, I don't
Several
know.
thousands of videos, surveillance videos.
How many videos would you say there were?
Approximately 21,000.
And did you review each of those videos?
I reviewed a majority of those videos. I reviewed all of the videos in relation to the.
Oh my God. She needs to marry someone with the last name of S and then hyphenate just for my life. But guys, this is where I have to unfortunately end it for right now. But after Newsy News, I'm going to try to get at least an hour in because I am the bus driver now. So remember, I have criminal crime and punishment at my house tonight. So I will be going later with this trial. I will be doing pickup usually every day around this time, then coming back and doing some more of the trial every day except for today because I have middle daughter crime and punishment. It'll be fun. It is 2:10 at my place, and Christian school gets crazy with this lineup stuff. These people are. I cannot send you anywhere, but yes, if you would like to go to Baker, I think Baker might start probably drinking and crying if they don't have a verdict yet. I would. So I am sorry for this very short little bit, but remember, I will be back. She's a good kid. She made a dumb teenager kid thing, and it is what it is. Dumb teenagers do dumb teenager stuff. So we have to do the whole sit down after school special thing, and then it will be done. But I will still have Newsy News, and then we will try to get at least the rest of today done after that. Then we will tomorrow be doing at least day 1 family interviews for the Maya in the morning, and then this trial in the afternoon. So that is our plan for tomorrow and the rest of the evening. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I will see you in a little bit. Have a great day. I am making Asian ribs, so yes. Crime and punishment and Asian ribs. Can't have anything better. I will see you guys later. Bye, guys.